When gospel royalty meets soul power, the world stops. Kirk Franklin and Jennifer Hudson just delivered a performance so electrifying, fans are calling it the duet of the decade. You won't believe how Silver and Gold turned into a moment that felt straight from heaven, but what really happened behind the scenes of this collaboration, and why is it stirring so much conversation across the music world? Stay tuned, because what you're about to hear will completely change the way you see this iconic moment. Picture this. Two musical giants sharing one stage, Kirk Franklin, the trailblazer who redefined gospel music for a new generation, and Jennifer Hudson, the powerhouse vocalist whose voice can lift souls and bring entire audiences to tears. When these two came together to perform the timeless classic Silver and Gold, fans knew it would be special, but no one was prepared for what actually happened next. This wasn't just a duet, it was a cultural event. The air was electric, the performance raw and emotional, and within minutes, social media exploded. Viewers were divided. Within minutes, social media exploded. Viewers were divided, some calling it divine perfection, others debating whether gospel had crossed another line into mainstream showmanship. In this video, we're diving deep into the story behind this unforgettable moment, from the rich history of Silver and Gold and Kirk Franklin's revolutionary influence on modern gospel to Jennifer Hudson's rise from Chicago church choirs to global superstardom. And here's the twist. Beneath the beauty of that performance, there are hidden details and deeper meanings that most people completely missed. The reactions to that performance weren't just about applause and admiration, they sparked controversy, conversation, and countless questions. What seemed like a flawless moment on stage turned out to have layers no one expected. Behind the cheers were whispers from insiders, critics, and even members of the gospel community, all with their own take on what really went down that night. You won't believe the surprising response this duet received or the quiet storm it stirred within the music world. By the end of this video, you'll understand this wasn't just a performance, it was a statement, a collision between tradition and innovation, faith and fame, and possibly the beginning of something much bigger for gospel music as a whole. So, stay tuned, because what we're about to uncover will make you see Silver and Gold in a completely new light. But before we dive into why this moment became such a turning point, we need to look at the two forces who made it happen. Kirk Franklin isn't just a gospel artist, he's a revolutionary. In the early 1990s, gospel music was mostly confined to church pews and Sunday choirs, but Franklin shattered that boundary. With groundbreaking hits like Stomp, Revolution, and Imagine Me, he fused gospel with hip-hop, R&B, and modern soul, creating a sound that could fill churches and top charts. His fearless creativity redefined what gospel could be, making it cool, relevant, and impossible to ignore. Kirk Franklin didn't just sing about faith, he made it resonate through rhythm, culture, and change. However, there is more to Kirk Franklin's tale than just his music. He was raised by his aunt when his mother abandoned him, creating a challenging upbringing. His struggles with identity, poverty, and faith have molded him into a singer who sings from experience rather than just skill. He sings from a place of survival and atonement in every note and lyric. Because of this, viewers feel Kirk Franklin rather than just hearing him. Jennifer Hudson, a formidable vocalist whose voice has been likened to the greats of Aretha Franklin and Whitney Houston, is on the other side of this duet. However, heartbreak has been a part of Hudson's journey. Her career has been characterized by success, starting with her modest beginnings singing in Chicago church choirs and continuing through her breakthrough on American Idol, an Academy Award win for Dreamgirls. But sorrow lurks beneath her success. Her voice was all but muted in 2008 after the tragic deaths of her mother, brother, and nephew. However, Jennifer persevered and used her suffering to create performances that are both emotionally charged and technically perfect. Imagine these two powerful forces of faith, tenacity, and unadulterated ability joining forces to sing Silver and Gold, one of the most well-known gospel anthems ever. It was more than just a show, it was fate coming together. Hudson, the survivor whose voice can reach deep into the soul, and Franklin, the pioneer who popularized the gospel. Their duet was more than just a team effort. It was the blending of two musical narratives, two legacies, and two stirring testimonies. Here's the startling bit though. Although their combination drove audiences to tears, not everyone was on board. In fact, some critics claim that Hudson's powerful ballad delivery and Franklin's high-energy modern gospel approach clashed in unexpected ways. There were also rumors circulating behind the scenes regarding why these two initially decided to work together and whether there was more to the story than their shared passion for gospel music. Stay tuned, because we'll be delving into the meaning and history of gold and silver in the next section. We'll also explore why this particular song evoked such strong emotions during Franklin and Hudson's performance. We must take a step back and examine the core of Silver and Gold in order to comprehend why Kirk Franklin and Jennifer Hudson's rendition of the song resonated so strongly. It's not just another gospel song, Silver and Gold. It is a strong hymn and spiritual proclamation about prioritizing faith and timeless treasures over worldly prosperity. Fundamentally, the song treasures over worldly prosperity. Fundamentally, the song embodies one of Christianity's most ancient lessons, that while wealth, celebrity, and other belongings are ephemeral, a relationship with God is invaluable. When Silver and Gold was first published in 1993 as part of Kirk Franklin's first album with the family, it immediately stood out as a really moving ballad. This song slowed things down, even though the album had lively tracks that introduced Franklin's revolutionary blending of hip-hop, R&B, and gospel. Revolutionary blending of hip-hop, R&B, and gospel. The message was underlined by the passionate, simple, and beautiful choral harmonies. Jesus is more important to me than wealth and silver. Sung at altar calls, revival sessions, and times of introspection, the hymn became a gospel community mainstay. Numerous admirers have related how the lyrics helped them go through difficult times, poverty, and personal challenges. Silver and Gold is more than simply a song to countless believers. It serves as a reminder of morals, the importance of spiritual wealth over material achievement, and the importance of faith over luck. Jennifer Hudson should now be included. Hudson has been candid about her religious beliefs and how church music influenced her creativity from an early age. For her, gospel was more than just a genre while she was growing up on Chicago's South Side. It was a lifestyle. The message of Silver and Gold speaks to someone who has lost a lot but has managed to restore her life. When she sings, "I'd rather have Jesus," she's doing more than just acting. She is giving testimony. The duet's strength came from this. Standing next to Hudson, a lady whose life exemplifies the song's message of faith and perseverance, is Franklin. The song, "Message of Faith and Perseverance," is Franklin, the songwriter and innovator who brought this masterpiece to the world. They did more than simply reenact a classic together. For a new generation, they reinterpreted it. This is where things become more tricky though. The duet, according to some gospel traditionalists, leaned too much toward performance theatrics rather than worship. They assert that rather than being a holy offering, the song became a performance due to Franklin's dynamic presence in Hudson's powerful delivery. Others had the opposite impression, that this very partnership revitalized the classic and presented the gospel to younger audiences, particularly those who are not members of the church, in a way that felt authentic, up-to-date, and pertinent. Fans engaged in unending argument on social media. Was this duet a development of gospel, demonstrating the message's ability to cut across voices and styles? Or did it deviate from the modest, contemplative essence that Gold and Silver formerly possessed? The disagreement merely increased the excitement and stoked interest in the more dynamics in action. The twist that most people are unaware of is this: Gold and Silver weren't picked at random for this partnership. Rumor has it that Franklin himself was so intimately invested in it that he insisted on seeing it again. Franklin frequently claims that the lyrics reflect his own life path because he had a very modest upbringing, that he still places a higher priority on his faith than anything else, even in the face of celebrity, honors, and financial success. Star power wasn't the only factor in choosing Hudson as a partner. It was about standing with someone whose life experience made the songs even more meaningful. The scene was now ready. A single thrilling moment. The live performance itself was the culmination of the song's history, the performers' personal relationships, and the cultural significance. The audience understood they were witnessing something that will be remembered for years after the first notes were played. However, we must first discuss the build-up before delving deeply into that remarkable performance, because the rehearsal process, the backstage discussions, and the industry chatter surrounding this duet reveal just as much about its impact as the actual performance. And you might be surprised by what we learned about those instances. Fans knew it would be a moment worth witnessing as soon as it was announced that Kirk Franklin and Jennifer Hudson would be performing together. However, many were unaware of how meticulously this partnership was planned. This was not a haphazard combination put together for publicity at the last minute. No, there were origins, preparation, and purpose behind this duet. Kirk Franklin has always presented gospel music in a calculated manner. His goal has always been more than just writing tunes. The focus has been on generating experiences, whether through live band arrangements, entire choruses, or unplanned partnerships. Franklin recognizes the value of combining innovation and tradition. He therefore viewed the chance to collaborate with Jennifer Hudson as more than just a show. He saw it as an opportunity to connect audiences, styles, and generations. Rehearsals behind the scenes were more than just technical tests. Insiders with knowledge of the production claim that Franklin and Hudson talked about the song's core for hours. Their goal was to convey the essence of the song, not simply the notes. According to reports, Franklin, who is renowned for his intensity and fervor, made it clear to Hudson that Silver and Gold was not about displaying vocal fireworks. The goal was to convey a message. Hudson, who has a strong emotional bond with her gospel heritage, completely agreed. This is where things become fascinating though. According to reports, producers and some members of the event's creative team wanted something more ostentatious, even though Even though Franklin was keen to highlight the timeless message of silver and gold. They recommended combining the song with other gospel songs in medleys or even with additional instrumental embellishments. But Franklin refused to back down. He thought the song's simplicity was its strength and that it could stand alone. The anxiety before the big night was increased by this quiet struggle behind the scenes. There was pressure on Jennifer Hudson's side as well. Hudson was aware that she would be scrutinized because she was more well-known in the secular music industry than in gospel circles. Any suggestion of over-singing or turning the performance into a show about one's own glory rather than devotion frequently provokes anger from gospel listeners who can be fiercely protective of their sacred music. But Hudson took a humble approach to the song. Those who attended rehearsals reported that she would frequently close her eyes while singing the lyrics, reminiscing about her early years in Chicago church pews. She wasn't entertaining the audience. Her soul was spilling out. Rumors that the duet was being positioned as more than a one-off only served to heighten the suspense. According to some, this was a trial run to see if Franklin and Hudson might work together on a bigger project later on, possibly even a special tour or album with a gospel theme. Although there's never any confirmation, the speculation fueled the flames. Before the performance ever took place, people were already posting on social media. Discussions erupted on gospel forums, Facebook posts, and tweets. A few were thrilled. We didn't realize we needed this duet. Others had doubts. Why Jennifer Hudson? A gospel singer, why not? And some were outright negative, wondering if Franklin was staying true to his choir roots or relying too much on celebrity partnerships. The mood was electrifying by the time the performance night arrived. Franklin, who is renowned for his charisma and unpredictable nature, assured attendees that they will see a spectacular event. Conversely, Hudson stayed more subdued, allowing her presence and voice to do the talking. The scene was set for a potentially successful or contentious event, and others were even more curious to see what would happen because of that uncertainty. The twist is here. Before the first note was even sung, the amount of passion in the room was evident from the behind-the-scenes video that eventually made its way online. Franklin can be seen pacing backstage with his eyes closed and muttering prayers in one of the clips. Hudson stood close by, her hands clasped, obviously focusing for the time. She was plainly dressed but forceful. It had nothing to do with cameras or celebrity. There was more to it than that. Industry insiders were aware that everyone would be watching to see how these two would balance their styles, even in spite of the spiritual mood. Would Hudson's soaring vocals be overpowered by Franklin's passionate delivery and vivacious directing? Would the song's intimate message be overshadowed by Hudson's powerful voice? Everyone was thinking about these questions. The band started playing as the lights went down, and the first notes of gold and silver filled the air. At first, the stage was dark. The crowd became silent in expectation. The piano was then lighted by a single spotlight. Kirk Franklin appeared out of the shadows as a gentle, deep introduction started to play. He appeared composed, almost reverent, in contrast to his typical exuberant entrances, in which he rallies the audience with yells and hand claps. The tone was set instantly by his presence. There would not be a show, there would be a moment. Franklin laid the groundwork by speaking softly to the crowd before beginning to sing. He reminded everyone that there is something immensely larger in a world that is consumed with worldly possessions, money, celebrity, and notoriety. His remarks echoed the main idea of the song. Jesus is more important to me than wealth and silver. Before the song began, it was akin to a lecture that captivated the audience both musically and spiritually. Jennifer Hudson followed. She strode forward, her presence imposing without a single note sung. And the room erupted. Hudson, who wore a simple yet elegant dress, didn't require ostentation. Her voice was the only thing in focus. Hudson closed her eyes, raised her chin, and started singing as the band moved into the opening silver and gold chords. Her first note, clear, strong, and filled with emotion, pierced the room like lightning. The audience responded right away. Many raised their hands in homage, as if they were in a church, while others stood and gasped. Hudson's voice exuded conviction in addition to technical mastery. The suffering of her history, the fortitude of her survival, and the faith that saw her through it were all audible. Silver and gold, each syllable. Jesus is more important to me than wealth and silver. Like a testimony, it landed. Franklin stepped in to build rather than to outshine. He created a dynamic push and pull by switching between leading the chorus and harmonizing with Hudson. He occasionally leaned urgently into the microphone to provide spoken word-like ad-libs that gave the song more vigor. At other times, he took a step back and let Hudson's vocals take center stage. There was no denying their chemistry. It was not a contest. It was a dialogue between two artists who valued the message's impact. The summit then appeared. Hudson used her entire vocal range as the song progressed, hitting high, sustained notes that rocked the venue. Behind her, the choir grew. "The band should lean in," Franklin said. The stage felt electrified all of a sudden. A few people in the audience were clearly crying. "Hallelujah" and "Amen" were yelled by others. They appeared to have been taken to a Sunday service. This is where the dispute starts, though. Some audience members whispered that Hudson's speech was too much, even if many were brought to tears, that it transformed a modest hymn of praise into a Broadway-style production. Others believed that Franklin's histrionic gestures and interjections made the performance less of a spiritual offering and more of a show. Even as the audience gave a loud applause, the division was evident. Reactions erupted on social media in a matter of minutes. Fans wrote things like, "Kirk Franklin and Jennifer Hudson just gave us the duet of the year, and Jennifer Hudson just took us to church tonight," in response to clips of Hudson's high notes that went viral almost immediately. But there were also detractors in addition to the laudatory remarks. One gospel blogger wrote, "This isn't worship, it's entertainment dressed as gospel." Another said, "Hudson does entertainment dressed as gospel." Another said, "Hudson doesn't need to oversing to prove her point. Let the song breathe." It's interesting to note that a behind-the-scenes photo taken following the performance showed Hudson and Franklin holding hands, both of them clearly distressed. That's what it's about, the message, the heart. Franklin's voice served as a reminder that, for the artists, this was not about criticism or acclaim. It was about using music to minister. But as the lights went down, the conversation continued. The duet became the focus of contentious arguments, reaction videos, and think pieces on several platforms. Did this performance demonstrate that evangelical music can be popularized without losing its essence? Or was it an indication that gospel is straying too far from its hallowed foundations and into the world of performance art? No one could ignore it. That much was clear. Whether you agree with it or not, Franklin and Hudson had produced something remarkable, and the effects of that evening would last long after the last note. The concert had already taken on a life of its own when Kirk Franklin and Jennifer Hudson left the stage. Clips started going viral on the internet in a matter of minutes. YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter were all overflowing with cell phone recordings. It was already among the most shared gospel performances in recent years when the official video was posted. But its strength wasn't the only topic of discussion. Every element of the duet was being discussed, including the delivery and its symbolic meaning. There was a great deal of acclaim on one side. Supporters referred to it as the decade's best collaboration and evidence that gospel music continues to influence society. There were testimonies in the comment sections from folks who claimed they hadn't attended church in years. However, this performance brought back memories of their upbringing. Some praised the manner that Hudson and Franklin crossed generational divides, with younger fans learning about a gospel classic for the first time because to Hudson's star power. One tweet went viral, saying, "Jennifer Hudson's voice plus Kirk Franklin's spirit equals chills for days." However, not everybody was having a party. There were conflicting reactions among traditional gospel audiences, particularly those with strong church cultural ties. Some claimed that Hudson's powerful voice overshadowed the song's meaning. Franklin was accused by others for focusing too much on celebrity partnerships instead of showcasing up-and-coming gospel artists. On forums for the gospel, then came the think pieces. One reader wrote, "This was more performance than worship. Where was the humility? Where was the reverence?" Another said, It felt like a show for the audience, not an offering to God. Articles analyzing the duet started to appear on blogs and entertainment websites. Some praised it as a daring attempt to bring gospel back into the mainstream, claiming that Hudson's participation opened up the genre to listeners who might not have otherwise heard it. Some cautioned that gospel could lose the unadulterated authenticity that initially made it so potent and instead become diluted by commercial spectacle. Another aspect was also taken up by the media, the collaboration's symbolic meaning. By standing next to Jennifer Hudson, a secular superstar who never gave up her gospel origins, Kirk Franklin, a pioneer of the gospel's transition into contemporary culture, forged a story of solidarity. Many saw it as evidence that spirituality is not limited to the doors of a church and that the boundaries between religious and secular music are blurred. But this very combination proved risky for critics. It generated discussions about whether gospel music should change and adapt to appeal to new audiences or should stay unique and unadulterated. The gap was only widened by social media. Reaction videos flooded YouTube. As Hudson's soaring melodies were played again, some influencers sobbed on camera, clearly impacted. Others criticized the performance, claiming that it was too Hollywood and polished for a song that was supposed to be intimate and simple. The popularity of hashtags like #SandGold, #JenniferHudson, and #Kirk Franklin attracted audiences from far outside the gospel community. Even famous people had something to say. Several prominent gospel musicians publicly applauded Franklin and Hudson, calling the duet a model of excellence. Others were more circumspect, pointing out that although the performance was technically excellent, gospel is about more than just skill. It has to do with ministry. These conflicting reactions only served to heighten conjecture over Franklin and Hudson's potential future collaboration. According to insiders, Franklin seemed unfazed by the criticism behind the scenes. He has always been a gospel disruptor, so controversy was nothing new to him. Some even suggested that he embraced it. Franklin, winning over everyone was never the goal. It was meant to challenge boundaries, reach hearts, and start a discourse. However, Hudson was said to have been stirred by both the criticism and the acclaim. According to others close to her, she considered the criticism carefully and considered how she could strike a balance between her innate ability to dazzle and the humility that gospel audiences need. Music platforms were also affected by the duet. When a whole new generation learned about Kirk Franklin's original rendition, streams of gold and silver skyrocketed. Many of Hudson's admirers had never delved into gospel music before, so they started looking through Franklin's discography. The performance not only evoked strong feelings but also rekindled interest in the genre, as seen by the spike in listens to gospel playlists. This is where the aftermath becomes even more fascinating. There were rumors going around that this duet was just the start of Franklin and Hudson's potential future duets. While some insiders conjectured about a live tour that may introduce gospel to venues often used for pop and R&B bands, others whispered about a collaborative gospel effort. Fans were intrigued to see if this one night was the beginning of a bigger movement, regardless of whether these rumors were genuine or not. However, the influence on the critics and the industry may not have been the most significant. It was directed at the general public. Comment sections were filled with testimonies from viewers who claimed that the performance gave them hope when they were going through difficult times. Others reported feeling a renewed sense of faith or recognizing themselves in Hudson's journey of suffering and tenacity. Regardless of the opinions of critics, one thing was certain: lives were impacted by this duet.